Do we introduce ourselves?
No. They should already know who we are.
But they don't.
Who doesn't?
Zak Bagans.
Just kidding, Zak. It's Zak Bagans. We know how to pronounce your name.
All right.
No one else knows how to pronounce your last name but the Ghost Maidens.
Let's start
Don't
with
forget
that. Zak. I don't know, is this the right tone?
Zak Bagans is the lead ghost hunter of a show called Ghost Adventures, which has been running since approximately 2011. And on this show, they go to haunted places, people's houses, all sorts of businesses. Everywhere you can imagine they go. Abandoned buildings, wherever. They go ghost hunting. And on all of these tours that they make, there's Zak Bagans and a team. He collects haunted objects along the way, from antique shops, from the place itself, from people, whoever, wherever. If it has a story, he collects it. And he decided to buy a house in Las Vegas that has a long history of darkness and demons, and it's a very large house. It's like 3 stories, which is very strange in Las Vegas. It's a large house, very big, and the museum is located inside of this house.
All the objects that you're going to see in the Haunted Museum are haunted.
All of them.
All of them are haunted. There are 300 demons.
Zak Bagans bought it, and he filled it with haunted objects. Dear Zak Bagans. That's right, Bagans, not Baggins, because you're not a hobbit. Dear Zak Bagans, we were at your museum 2 weeks ago.
And we had the time of our mortal lives.
It was May 2022. The weather was hot. The day was young. It was just beginning to settle into dusk when we arrived.
While we were standing in line to enter the museum, everyone was a little bit afraid. Everyone was excited. We were watching fragments of episodes from Ghost Adventures. And I think this was a really smart move. Because while you were standing in line to go inside, to meet and to feel and to see the objects that is talked about in these little fragments from Ghost Adventures, you could already see other people who have visited the museum getting affected by the objects, which only raised the stakes and the suspense. Very smart. And it also reminds you of the reason why you got there in the first place, which is television. TV. I think everyone who goes to the Haunted Museum in Las Vegas, they go there because they have seen Ghost Adventures on the television.
Yeah.
And I think that you, Zak, are very aware of that.
Very aware.
And you know that you are catering to a pop cultural sentiment.
So, there we were, standing in line. Then there was another line where we went in to the front door and purchased the RIP. What is the RIP, you ask? I'll show you.
I forgot mine.
It's okay.
I wish I hadn't.
The RIP is an upgrade from the normal tour, which gets you a t-shirt and hidden rooms that you have to crawl to that no one else can see. And then we looked over and we saw a framed selection of all of the people who have previously visited the museum. And do you know who we saw?
Post Malone.
Post Malone and Zak Bagans.
They're friends.
Holding hands.
Yeah.
And a picture frame.
And Post Malone was affected by one of the artifacts.
Big time.
That Zak Bagans holds in his museum. The moment you enter this museum, you really feel that it gets more tense. And this could be because of all the hauntings that are going on in the house, but this could also just be because of all the stories that you are told right before you get into the place, but also everything you've seen on the television.
There were things such as serial killer rooms, weird oddities clown room, scary religious objects such as the Dybbuk box,
James Dean's car.
James Dean's piece of car, many haunted dolls, headless people, anal dilation kits from the 1850s gifted from the singer of Korn to Zak Bagans, trick doors, there were haunted paintings,
Clown hallways.
clown hallways,
Mirrors.
there was a rotten corpse hand.
Did you feel nervous going into the museum?
Some parts I did. I felt nervous going into the satanic basement.
I also felt nervous going into the satanic
Because
basement.
I was the first one also. I was the first one to go into all the rooms because I'm a teacher's pet like that. I'm always like, me! And I go. And in this satanic basement, there was Bela Lugosi's mirror. There was a live ghost box that it was very loud, that at any moment could say something that would ruin our lives forever. There was, there was a huge satanic pentagram on the floor. There was, I don't know, more satanic objects. There was a Baphomet. There was some other stuff. But it was a very creepy basement. This basement has a lot of history in this house for being like a demon world, a demon land.
Yeah. And I also felt like the tour guide, he expressed not wanting to go down there himself. So he was like, good luck for everyone who's going down there, which I think was a smart move.
But it was his favorite room.
Yeah, but I also think it's like something the tour guides do. It's like, good luck down there. I'm not going myself
he
personally.
wasn't going, no.
Because there's also one room where the tour guide says that this is the only room Zach doesn't go in. And it really feels like the moment you're stepping inside, you're like, oh, the room that he himself wouldn't even go in. And that really makes the experience stronger. I think his hate and his love are something that are very close together.
Yeah.
I have the same thing. The things I am the most uncomfortable with are the things that inspire me the most. I think he has the same thing. It looks a little bit like Zak Bagans thinks that Satanism might be something else.
It does.
Yeah.
They do, in fact, have Anton LaVey's certificate for someone in joining the Church of Satan. They have a satanic Bible. They have satanic goblets. They have other satanic objects. They have a Necronomicon, an original Necronomicon. So they're like Satanism, but also Satanism.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit confusing because when you look at the museum and when you look at the exhibition and when you look at the aesthetics of the place, you would think that he would appreciate Satanism, that it's something that he learns from, or that's something that he is inspired by. But in the stories of with the haunted objects, every time it keeps coming back that Satanism represents an evil that needs to be outcasted by good, like in almost in a Catholic way. And this is a little bit confusing because on one hand he completely adopts the Satanist aesthetic as something that he appreciates, but at the other side it looks like he's calling it evil and something to be dealt with. Mm-hmm. And I would like to call him out on that. What's up? What's up with your...
It's our question to you, Zak Bagans.
Bagans.
There was the van of Dr. Kevorkian.
One of my favorite parts of the exhibition, or the most important story maybe, Dr. Kevorkian.
The Kevorkian and the sketchy, mysterious tale of the artist that no one seems to know.
Yeah, so for the people who don't know, Dr. Kevorkian was a doctor, and he had a van, and they used to call this van the death van. And they called this the death van because he used to perform euthanasia on people that were terminally ill. And he composed his own weird music to guide them through to death. And he used to make really weird paintings. I think he was an artist.
Yeah. He was an artist.
Yeah, and he died in prison, I think. But he had the van inside the museum where these suicides or these euthanasia was done. And it was weird to look into those windows and to really think about all those people who had their last moments on Earth there. Because the room before that, you could see the paintings that he made.
He had his own paintings, which were very disturbing. Also, from seeing a lot of paintings, that's like my degree, looking at paintings, were very disturbing. All of the paintings were like, it was like this kind of outsider art, like not really historically or thematically trained in art history. It was just kind of him making stuff out of his head.
Yeah.
And it was mostly just like themes of pulling stuff open, like ripping
there were like
open.
Human figures.
Yeah.
Human figures
missing their skin.
Who were in the process of breaking out of something, or they had like it was not necessarily only a desperate feeling about them, but also something eternal. I don't know. Looking at the paintings and knowing what he did, it really felt like this man had a very deep mission. I really feel like he was looking at his work in a way that an artist would, and that's a little bit controversial, because in the same haunted museum there's also serial killer objects are exhibited.
Yeah.
Also a little bit in a way where it looks like they were also on some kind of an artistic research path, but then without beyond the boundaries of the law, obviously.
Yeah. But the van was very creepy.
Well, for me, the
Why?
weird thing about the van is just imagining people dying in there and having like maybe the most profound moments of their entire life.
Yeah.
Laying in such a
Cramped space.
like finally dying after wanting to die for so long, and then a stranger maybe holds your hand, and then you hear the music he created for your last moment.
Yeah, like you heard in the room where the van was, the music that he played, that he composed, that he also played while people were dying. He played his own symphonies.
I think he saw the process.
Death positive almost. But most people view that as like mentally wrong or something to help people die, because this is way before euthanasia was considered a good idea.
Yeah. Well, I think looking at that room, but that's also how, of course, Zak Bagans curates it, and I think he likes to curate things in that way, which is also something he does with the serial killers, but more about that later. Is that it looks like he himself saw it as an artistic practice, like he saw the process of dying, or the maybe the process of letting life go as something divine, maybe even.
And they say in the video, like, the Smithsonian is gonna want this van because it has a lot to do with the beginning, the beginning of culturally accepting euthanasia and the right to die and choosing your own time to die. And that's a big deal. That's not a right for anyone, basically. I mean, it's barely legal in the Netherlands.
But about this portrayal of artists from criminals, basically, like factually, these people are criminals. Also, John Wayne Gacy, there is objects that belong to him. I think he has his prison suit, and there is hair.
And his weird clown paintings.
Yes. And there's another full room of a man who, I don't know which serial killer that was, but he tortured people and he kept a diary of it.
Oh, yeah, that guy. I don't remember his name.
And it kind of feels like everyone is just portrayed as an artist.
Yeah.
It made me feel a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Because it felt like I was looking at their work.
It was a good way of curating, because I also was like, are they artists, or is that how just they're being presented to me in a sort of way where I'm just like, seems like they were onto something. I don't know what. Obviously, murder is wrong, but like, they were very societally cast out, but they were very into a secret world. And if you're an artist, you have a secret world in which you live in, that you do research in, you test it out, you play with it. And this secret world of theirs was not socially acceptable, not humane.
Yeah.
But it's It felt really
It's,
artistic.
it's just like our project gone completely wrong.
Yeah.
And not to want in society. But it feels like Zach has a fascination with the artistic motivations or
Yeah.
the artistic
Strange
side
motivations.
of the wicked or something.
Yeah. There's paintings from John Wayne Gacy. There was like the ashes of Charles Manson. There was his hair. There was his prison uniform. There were his sandals, his flip-flops.
Those were weird items.
Yeah.
The flip-flops of Charles Manson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The glasses of Ted Bundy. Like all sorts of stuff. It was a very interesting room, the prison room. It was like a very pop culture serial killer room.
Yeah, well,
Netflix
everything in
room.
the entire museum. Like, he only has items that are important for pop cultural reasons. Everything
Yeah.
has to be a little bit famous. If it's not famous, it doesn't really end up there. And there's one exception. The
Mysterious
Lee
artist.
Sober Shapiro lady. No one knows who she is. People actually are not really sure what her real identity is, because if you look her up, you cannot really find anything about her. But there's this one room where he has curated the research room of this lady who was engineering machines to communicate with what she thought were demons.
Portals. She was creating
Portals. She was creating portals.
sound portals, and like she called them a special word, but they were basically like holes that she would place objects inside in order to communicate with the other side. And she was just sitting in basically like a radio room where she had engineered all of these like tubes into the wall that she would place objects in and try to like sit there and communicate. It was very interesting.
Very interesting. And in this room, they had 4 Polaroids. And what they said about these Polaroids is that within 24 hours, these 4 Polaroids were taken. And the last one that was taken was the moment before she died. So basically you see a series of pictures where you see her, the lady who was communicating with this other world, just looking more possessed, basically, or more skinnier. Deranged. She herself said that these demons were going to kill her, and this is a documentation of that. However, this was my favorite room, to be honest. Like, this was the room where I wanted to know more about her, but I couldn't find anything about her. I couldn't find her. When you Google her, you can only find whatever you can find in the Haunted Museum. Just those 4 photos and whatever Zach is displaying. The first thing I found was that all the stories that are there about her are just from the person he bought the stuff from. So it kind of feels a little bit like the only not really famous person, or the famous story, needs more validation. So it also feels like this pop culture is giving the artworks or the artifacts more credibility.
Yeah.
And I also noticed that the moment that I cannot validate the story by just online presence, then I'm more skeptical. But that also has a flip side. Because when something is too famous, for example, there was also this room where there was just passports of, what's his name, who died?
Roadhouse. Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze. There was this Patrick Swayze passport.
They also had Michael Jackson's makeup chair and
Sharon
James
Tate's
Dean's
wedding dress.
part. Sharon Tate's wedding dress.
And with these items, I was not impressed because the only thing they had was just fame. So I felt like, why is this in a haunted museum? That's where I felt a little bit where the pop culture was taking over from the haunting. But in that, I could also really sense the cultural environment where this museum stands in. I got the feeling that something that is haunted was almost the same thing as something being really famous. So this aura that an object has or can have in this museum with a scary story, or it's supposedly being haunted by demons, in this one room, it felt like these objects had the same value in hauntingness. I don't know if that, like, I'm just making that word up, but maybe you can follow me.
Haunt value.
Haunt value for only being famous. And for me personally, that was not enough for an object to be haunted. So Patrick Swayze's passport is not haunted only because it's famous for me, but it felt like in the museum, that was enough.
It feels more of like a cheap trick to just show a famous person's
But
dead
I think
famous
that
person's
the blurry
object.
line between haunted and famous does point out the worldview of the demographic of the people that go to the haunted museum.
You have to know who Michael Jackson is to go be
Yeah.
amazed by Michael Jackson's thing. It was more, you're trying to say those objects were more of a reflection of the people going to see those objects than they were the objects having a story within themselves.
I think so, yes. Catering to the people who feel like something being haunted is the same thing as something being famous. And it also shows me that fame, like in Zak Bagans' worldview, fame somehow almost attracts darkness or hauntings or demons. It feels like he's looking for the darkness in the stories of famous people. For example, with the James Dean exhibition, he had a car part of the car James Dean died in. And there was some kind of lore around this car. Supposedly, people who have transported this car after he crashed in the car also died. So supposedly this car had some like demonic possession, or the people who were associated, well, bad things happened to.
It's tricky though. This isn't an easy point to parse, if you will, because the reason the paranormal and the reason pop culture go so well together is because everyone has to know something about it beforehand. Mm-hmm. So if you're missing the pop culture, you can't really participate in the rest of it. If you don't know something about, for example, Michael Jackson, if you don't know who that is, his object is basically meaningless. But if you don't know anything about, for example, the serial killer, but you hear about what they did and these objects in the room, it has way more weight than it does if it's just Michael Jackson's object that he sat on once when he was alive. It's cheaper or something.
But I think that goes for any art. It goes for any art exhibition. You're gonna feel more with the paintings or with the sculptures or with the theater piece if you know a little bit more about it. And therefore, when something is curated in a good way, then this comes more naturally. But what I personally hate about going to a gallery or to an art exhibition is when they expect me to do all my homework myself. But with this show, it only attracts people who already know about it. Yeah. I don't think that many people go to the Haunted Museum not knowing who Zak Bagans is.
Yeah.
Or not having seen a single episode of Ghost Adventures.
I have a complaint about the tour
of
the Haunted Museum. My first question was, which tarot card is the Zak Bagans automaton fortune teller reader holding? To which the tour guide replied, I don't know, it's just random.
But also, if anything would be completely random, that would also mean that is bad curating.
Yeah.
Because you don't put anything random in a room its only function has to tell you a story. So we should assume that nothing is random at all.
Yeah. The tarot card he should have been holding, well, I would have liked to see death. But I would have also liked to see any other card, which would have been more mysterious.
I think. If the premise of the house is to hold 300 demons, then he should better be holding the devil card, I think.
You know what, Zak Bagans? I loved your museum.
Yes.
This is why. Personally, I've spent a lot of time in art museums, historical museums, contemporary art galleries, science museums,
Theater shows.
Performances. But I will say, Zak Bagans, you did a great job. You are working with professionals. I can see that by the way you arrange your objects, the way you frame them, the way you number them, the way you categorize them in terms of curation, framing, and preservation of the objects you collect. Very well done.
And I can see that you love each of these objects. I can see that you have a history with them, and I can see that you really care about the story that these objects represent for you, and that you made sure to exhibit them in a way that everyone has a chance to feel the same connection you do with these objects.
There was a popcorn perfume in the air, engineered during the circus parts.
As if he was aware of the fact that people came to the haunted museum for their entertainment. As if, looking at these haunted objects, they felt like they might be a part of the stories playing out, something they could touch.
I can see in you, Zak Bagans, that you're a secret artist.
Definitely.
And no one has ever coaxed it out of you because you did not grow up in the art world. You did not have experience with it. You just grew up in the television and entertainment world. You had all your most important experiences under that umbrella.
I think he's better than an artist. Like, he's not trying to be one. He's just doing his thing. He's the only one doing it. And he doesn't care. It's
He's
just like,
born without the prejudice of the art world.
Yeah.
He made it his own, which is what you have to do as an artist. You have to make that shit your own.
Like, graduated, Zach.
Yeah.
And
Zak
he doesn't even care.
Graduated.
And he doesn't even care.
He doesn't even know.
Because the only thing he's interested with is what he's already doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chapeau.
A chapeau, Zak Bagans. From the European Ghost Maidens.
I'm hungry.
Do you want popcorn?
I want crisps.
All right. And I think that concludes our review of Las Vegas's Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum, everyone. Can we all get a round of applause for Zak Bagans?